I'm Julie Gaffney, an Associate Vice President here at Fordham, and we were gathered today with Congressmember Richie Torres and with members of the EJ community throughout the Bronx to talk about the unprecedented funding opportunities that the Inflation Reduction Act offers us as New Yorkers, and especially as Bronxites, here in the center of environmental justice work in the nation. I am directing the Thriving Communities Grantmaker Program for Region 2 that is going to be administering $40 million in grants throughout the next 3 years to community groups that are doing frontline work with disadvantaged communities throughout the region. And so we built this program for and with the Bronx, and now we are able to share this opportunity throughout the entire region too, New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands. So today was really all about sharing that information and getting ready to open our applications this month.
Thank you.
We have we're going, by the way, the Q&As, we're going to do it at the end of all the presentations, especially that you have a lot of questions. So we're going to go through the presentations, and then we're going to have a Q&A part, and you can feel free to ask. We have a pretty diverse group here. We have people from Business Improvement District. We have from Environmental Justice groups here. We have from the Hunts Point Produce Market. He is right here. We have a lot of our clergy members that are here as well. So it's a pretty diverse group, and think about these opportunities. This is not only for just environmental justice groups or organizations. This is for environmental justice initiatives. Yeah, it's different.
It's a great point.
So
it's a great point. Thank you.
So now I'm going to go to the other presentation that and by the way, I have to say, the idea of this event, it all started with a conversation with Matt right here from the League of Conservation Voters, that he reached out to our office. And he said, oh, we would like to do this presentation with you guys to provide information. And then we continued the conversations, and we were like, what about we do an Inflation Reduction Act, a whole event with different organizations, and we brought up Fordham and then EPA, and we're all here together now to know a little bit because honestly the Inflation Reduction Act, it's a lot. There's a lot there. So that's why only one presentation, it wasn't going to do it. So now I'm going to present the president of New York League of Conservation Voters, Julie Tai.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are you? It's good to be here in the Bronx. We'll be here again tomorrow afternoon. Slightly different part of the Bronx. Go Yankees.
It's still part of my congressional district.
Still in the hunt. My name is Julie Tai, as Victor mentioned. I'm president of the New York League of Conservation Voters. I'm really grateful for Congressman Torres for convening this important roundtable. You've been committed throughout your career in public service to fighting for the environment and environmental justice and bringing these issues up, and we appreciate that. Thanks again to Julie and to Fordham for hosting us here today, and particularly for it being a very lovely, beautiful fall day, almost fall. And to Elisa and the EPA for the leadership in administering these important programs. The Inflation Reduction Act, as the Congressman said, is really a historic and landmark piece of legislation. It really is marking a turning point in our nation's commitment to a healthier and greener future. The Clean Energy Plan that's in the IRA works by incentivizing people, nonprofits, governments, and businesses to make greener choices. Because we know people like to follow the money. This is really where the federal government, they couldn't quite get some of the sticks out there. They got an awful lot of carrots as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. As Victor mentioned, we've been doing these events with members of Congress across the state. We really want to make sure that people are aware people and organizations are aware of all the funding that is out there, because if there's nothing that New York likes more to do than pull down free money from the federal government. So I'm looking forward to this discussion, and we've already heard a lot. Which way am I? Oh, right. So we know that this investment is the largest investment that any country in the entire world has ever made in climate change. Full stop. $369 billion, and it's probably actually going to be higher than that because of the way some of the programs work, was made available in the IRA, and it covers a whole slew of types of projects. It includes fundings to help us get clean energy, for buildings to decarbonize, for transportation, to improve the way we're doing farming and agriculture, to invest in public lands and clean water, to get clean manufacturing going. We're seeing a manufacturing resurgence in our country, in our state, and that's something that we want to take advantage of. And as we've talked about already with the EPA, really on making sure that we're investing in healthy communities. So some of these programs that are out there are really for the business community, right? So there is a 10-year extension of the 30% tax incentive to get clean energy. That is funding that is helping us get our offshore wind programs going. Many of you may know or may not know, we now have the nation's first commercial scale offshore wind operating in our country, providing power to our state. It's called South Fork Wind, and there's another project that's in construction called Sunrise Wind that's going to be able to power 600,000 homes with clean energy. So that is a big change. Right now, downstate, 90% of the power that we get, Long Island, New York City, Lower Hudson Valley, comes from fossil fuels. So this is like a real change-making incentive that we need to happen. And there's new programs available that allow nonprofits and governments to get funding, because before they've been tax credits, but now there's something called direct pay that would enable, say, a church to put solar panels on its roof. So this is a new program and a continuation of a program that's really critical to make that happen. There's a big greenhouse gas reduction program that's $27 billion. That's going to be making sure that we're getting investments into getting new technologies to help us reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And there's additional incentives when we're going into communities that are energy communities, basically communities that have been impacted by polluting facilities. So they're really trying to get those investments, as the Congressman mentioned, really focusing, we gotta fix our slide a little bit, focusing on these communities that have been burdened with pollution in the past by giving additional incentives for investing in those communities. There's a whole slew of tax credits available if you want to get an electric car. Transportation, as you know here in the Bronx, is one of the largest sources of pollution, not just for greenhouse gas emissions, for just plain pollution that causes asthma, cancer, other health ailments. So now there's a $7,500 tax credit that's available for cars. If you're buying something new, there's, for the first time ever, there's a $4,000 tax credit for buying a used electric car, which previously has not been available. We know a lot of people are not buying a brand new car when they're purchasing one, they're buying a used car. This makes more funding available for lower income people in particular to be able to take advantage of getting an electric vehicle. And there's funding available so that you can get charging infrastructure to make that happen. In addition, because again, the IRA isn't just about getting clean energy out there, it's about bringing manufacturing back to the United States. There's a $2 billion in grant available to convert manufacturing facilities so that they can produce electric vehicles or components of electric vehicles. There are some limits on this based on how expensive the car is, based on how much money you make, on who's eligible for that. And again, the idea there is to target people who need the most help and not target people who are well-resourced themselves. So there's some particulars on that. Interestingly, if you're going to lease a car, those income limits don't apply. So it's a little technical oversight, but people can take advantage of that opportunity. On the used vehicle side, you can get up to $4,000 or 30% of the vehicle's value, whichever is lower. The car has to be worth less than $25,000 and it has to be at least 2 years old. We know that just this year, $1 billion has already gone out to people in America to purchase electric vehicles for 150,000 cars. So this is really making a change in how we're getting people transported, because again, this is one of the top sources of pollution out there. There's funding also available for medium and heavy duty vehicles. There's a tax credit of up to 30% for electric, medium, and heavy duty vehicles like school buses and garbage trucks. So it's really providing incentives for communities and companies to purchase these electric vehicles so they can make that transition. I know we talked about the Hunts Point market, right? This is an opportunity to help get new, cleaner vehicles in those communities. From the bipartisan infrastructure law, because actually Congress passed 3 big laws that really impact us. One is the bipartisan infrastructure law, one is the Inflation Reduction Act, one is called the CHIPS and Science Act. But the bipartisan infrastructure law included $2.5 billion for electric school buses, and the state of New York has already gotten funds from the first 2 rounds of grants that EPA is administering. We got 184 electric school buses across the state the first year. We got another 200 the year after that. We clearly are having some formatting issues with our slides in the translation here. But the state of New York passed a bond act. All voters passed this a couple of years ago, where we have $500 million available from the state of New York also to invest in electric school buses, and so far the state has made available the first $200 million. So that is helping us to deploy more electric school buses in our state. We know that too often the air inside of a school bus is dirtier than the air outside of a school bus, and it just seems very wrong that we are sending kids to school to learn and they're getting sick on the way there. So this is something that we've been focused on at the League for quite a while. And we worked with the congressman also when he was in the council on this. This has been going on for quite a long time. Buildings in the state of New York are actually the number one.
Did you put that there?
I didn't. They always change it. Everyone is different. There's no heating in that building, I can tell you that. Purchased many a very expensive hot chocolate in October. But there is a lot of money available for getting at pollution associated with buildings, right? We have old infrastructure here in the state of New York. It is the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions. And so this is funding available that we can help to make our homes and buildings more energy efficient and reduce the amount of energy we're using in the first place. There is funding available explicitly for training for workers, because we want to make sure that there is a just transition for workers as we're moving away from fossil fuel jobs towards clean energy jobs, to make sure that we're not leaving people behind and we're getting people involved to be part of the solution. And I'm going to get into more detail, but there is nearly $9 billion available for home energy rebates to help people cut their energy costs. I'll get into more details in a minute. This is really guided towards like individuals, but Rewiring America has created a calculator so that people can figure out how much money they might be eligible for under all of the programs in the Inflation Reduction Act. And you can go onto their website and you can put in whether you rent or own your where you live, what zip code you live in, who your electric utility is, what your household income is, and what your tax status is, and it will give you an estimate of how much money you could be eligible for under the Inflation Reduction Act. So using the local zip code here and a household income of $45,000, we would calculate that you would be eligible for up to $19,000 in incentives between upfront discounts, which are rebates that come right off the hood of a car, for example, or for a rebate for an appliance, tax credits of up to $5,200, as well as a savings in your electric bill, which I think is really what matters the most for people at the end of the day, is you want to make these changes and have a lower electric bill in the out years. There are 2 different types of programs. So one is tax credits. You have to owe taxes in order to get a tax credit. These are not refundable the way that they're written. So there is right now a tax credit available for cars. They are changing that so that it is happening right at the dealership rather than having to apply for it later. And then there are rebates, and rebates are something that happens instantaneously so that you, the consumer, don't have to go and pay for that. Tax credits that have been available for over a year right now cover a whole slew of different things. Battery storage for your building, geothermal heating installations, new electric vehicles, rooftop solar, heat pumps, air conditioners or heaters, heat pumps for hot water, weatherization, updating your electrical panels, because very often people have electrical panels that need to be upgraded in order for them to make their building more energy efficient or to add more electric load, as will be required for, say, an electric vehicle charger or for new heat pumps. So it's really looking at what's the infrastructure you need to put into a building in order to make it ready. We know that already, or in 2023, $8.4 billion of residential tax credits went out the door. In the state of New York, we got $374 million, and I'm telling you, we can do better than that. So we have the opportunity to go and get more federal funding to help people make their homes more energy efficient and reduce the energy demand that they're using. NYSERDA is the state agency that is administering the rebate programs for us. There are two different programs. One is called HERE and one is called HER, which is very funny acronym. But the home efficiency rebates program is HER, and that the state has gotten $159 million for that program. And then the high efficiency electric home rebate program, or the home electrification and appliance rebate program, or HERE program, we've gotten, again, just about $159 billion. So we have about $317 million available for these rebate programs that are going to be available through the end of 2031. So it's a number of years that these programs are going to spend out already. This is a little chart that NYSERDA has put together that shows you how much money you could be eligible for heat pumps, for a new electric cooking appliances, for a new electric clothes dryer. I think a lot of people don't know that a lot of clothes dryers are run by gas. Upgrading your wiring or your electrical service, doing insulation and air sealing and ventilation. So you can get up to $14,000 in rebates. It depends on how much money you make. Again, geared towards lower income people. So if you're less than the area median income, and it is very specific to your locality so that you're not comparing Upper East Side of Manhattan with South Bronx as far as how much money people make. But if you're getting under 80%, a lot of this, you can get the entire cost covered, right? So you don't have to shell money out. It's something that can come to you. Those are people who need the money the most. If you're in a slightly higher bracket, if you're between 80 and 150% of that area median income, you can get up to 50% of the funds available. There is availability for multifamily buildings. We know a lot of people live in multifamily buildings. They do have to have a number of people in the building who are income eligible for them to qualify. And there is funding for installers, because we want to make sure that the business community that's doing the work has the incentives to go there. Because right now, if your hot water heater breaks down, your contractor's going to come in and they're going to say, oh, hey, we're going to replace this in kind. And they're going to give you the same exact one. We want them to have an incentive to say, we could replace it in kind, or we could give you something that's more energy efficient and electric, so that you're making that other decision. So they're trying to encourage that. This is happening through a NYSERDA program called Empower Plus. The application is available now. You can get a no-cost home energy assessment, so you can figure out what in your house needs to be replaced or how cost-effective it is to make various upgrades. They can help you to install improvements directly, what makes the most sense, and that's available at this QR code. And again, I think we're also making our slides available. This is just a depiction of like what it is that could be eligible within a home for tax credits and rebates right now. I think sometimes people are more visual. There's a lot of charts. There's a lot of different grant programs that are out there right now. And so we want to make sure that people have the opportunity to find out about it. And there are some things that are specific for renters. Obviously, electric cars. You can sign up for community solar, and that can help with getting IRA tax credits. And you should really be, if people who are renters, you have to work with building owners and management to help take advantage of the IRA tax credits and the rebates that are out there. This is where projects have been spent. This is not for like individuals, but overall. We can see, as Alyssa pointed out, money is flowing, right? There are projects happening all over this country that are being invested from the Inflation Reduction Act and from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was passed a little bit earlier, so that's why more of the money has gone out. but this is all starting to flow. We've gotten, over $1 billion in grants already in the state of New York, 194 projects. We know that there's a lot more out there and a lot more will be coming. It does take time to get these programs up and running. So we're excited to see where all the funds go, and we're ready to see what happens next. We have tried to make this a little bit more user-friendly for people, and we've created a consumer guide that can help people understand what's available and how to get more information. We have this in both English and Spanish, so it is something that we're making available on our website. So I've had a lot to say. I'm going to end there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie. And that was great. And that honestly, like, is not only like for organizations, but as well like for homeowners, for renters, like for people that if you want an AV card, like there's an option like for you as well. So now let's go to our final presentation. After that, we are going to go to the Q&A, and we're going with the other Julie, our host, who's going to be talking about the Thriving Communities grant-making program. I know that a couple of you already have seen and heard this presentation, but I think there's some updates and more information and details. So yeah, Dr. Julie Gatt.
Great. Well, good morning again, everyone. And Victor, you took the words out of my mouth. I was actually going to start by saying that I know many folks in here have seen this presentation or are familiar with some of this information, and I think that's actually a really good thing. And it's not just because you've seen the presentation, it's because you actually worked with us from the very beginning to put together the strategy and to put together the application we submitted, to put together that participatory governance structure that is really a backbone of this grant-making opportunity. So there are so many folks here who have worked with us for now almost 2 years on this project, from the very beginning, conceiving it. And one of those key collaborators has been the Congress member. It was in December 2022 that the Congress member and I were visiting Elena over at the Mary Mitchell Center and talking about the Inflation Reduction Act and the opportunities coming through and the imperative to share resources and to ensure resources here in the Bronx. And talking about the role also of larger institutions of higher education like Fordham in this work. And it was really through his guidance and charge to say, what can Fordham do? We are right here in the center of the Bronx. We are right here in the center of Region 2. We're deepening. Part of the reason that Surey and I and our amazing team was brought on board 5 years ago here is to really deepen the commitment of the university to community engagement and to use the infrastructure of the institution, right? We're this big, sprawling institution. We have a finance department. We have a compliance department. Yes, we do those things for teaching and learning and research, but we're also an institution that is of the Bronx, that is of New York City, and that is in community and in partnership, and that intends to and really must use its resources to support the community initiatives that are being led by everybody in this room. And so that's really where the idea for us to go out for this grant-making opportunity came from. And I first just want to thank all of the collaborators in this room who have been part of the process every single day and who have been really building out how these opportunities work, because the big goal here, so we are going to be disseminating $40 million over the next 3 years to community-led environmental projects in Region 2. It's going to be a lot of work, but this project is only going to be successful if we're able to move those dollars to organizations that often don't apply for big federal grants, because they can be such a challenge, right? Reading through all of those regulations, figuring out the compliance components of it. Sometimes it's 60 pages of directions before you even get to the application. And so our charge and our job working with EPA is really to serve as an arm of grant making to make those opportunities way more accessible so that the application doesn't take days and days and weeks and months, so that the application is something that really responds to your own priorities, to your projects. And also, just to echo something that Victor said, these are environmental projects, but that doesn't mean you have to be an environmental organization. I'll talk more about the kinds of projects that are available, but these are really green energy solutions. These can be community centers, convenings, bringing together community members. I know every single person in this room is doing that work on a day-to-day basis here in the Bronx and here in New York City. So this is additional funding to support and uplift those initiatives that you're already working on. So speaking of the participatory governance, the structure, I want to ask the chairperson of our Community Leadership Board to give a wave. We have with us Wanda Fowler. Is a true community leader here in the Bronx and has been for decades. We're so grateful to work with you, Wanda, and to leverage your expertise. So Wanda is going to be chairing the board that makes the determinations about where funding goes. That board brings together community leaders, environmental justice organizers, advocates, experts from throughout Region 2 to make sure that this money that is flowing through at an unprecedented level is really going to make the most community impact possible. So, what are the grant projects? There are 4 different opportunities for funding. There are $75,000 awards that are non-competitive, meaning you don't have to submit an application for these awards. So that's exciting. It's a short nomination form. You can nominate your own organization. You could nominate an organization that you work with. These awards are really intended for organizations that have smaller annual operating budgets, that are looking for funding, and that don't have as many compliance requirements. You don't have to submit quarterly budget reports with these awards. They're a lot easier to receive, and they're a lot easier to spend. So they're to provide capacity to organizations, to communities, to groups that are taking on the essential frontline environmental work in their particular community. Any organization or individual can nominate, and while Wanda's board will ultimately make determinations on the funding, there is a participatory element to the selection of these awards, because we want to ensure that the awards are going to the organizations and the entities that are doing the most in their home communities. And so we do have, similar to participatory budgeting, we have a participatory system where you can vote for the project that you feel is going to be most impactful in your community. And that will be taken into account as we make those funding selections. There are then 3 tiers for funding for competitive projects. So these are projects you do need to submit an application for. The applications are mostly it's a project narrative, it is a budget, and then it's an impact statement. There are other elements to it, but those are really the big 3 pieces. So the phase 1 projects are for assessment. These are 1-year projects, and these are really to get a sense of the scope of an issue that you're looking to address. So this could be something here in the Bronx. We are working consistently around air quality and asthma. If you wanted to take on an air quality monitoring project, you might apply for a Tier 1 funding opportunity, or looking at the extent of water contamination, which we know is a real area of focus in Puerto Rico. We have a lot of organizations down there looking at that work. Monitoring, surveys and studies. If you need to do a needs assessment of a particular area to start thinking about a job training program or an education pipeline, but you need to get that information first. This is the bucket of funding that will do that, public education programs and so on. And I should say, by the way, this is not an exhaustive list, right, of initiatives. We're just trying to give an idea of some of the kinds of projects, but you all will have many other projects that are eligible for funding. The second tier of funding, this is the $250,000 awards. These are for planning projects. So this is a project for which you do have a sense of the scope of the issue. You have taken a look at some of that information or data. You've been building coalition and community. And now you want to take that project to the next step. So you're going to do some intensive planning over 1 or 2 years. You might do some training activities or community building initiatives, public outreach projects, some kind of coordination campaign with community stakeholders. Something really interesting about both this tier and the last tier, the 350, is that you can use this funding up to 50% of an award for land acquisition. You can use this award for some kinds of capital projects, for purchasing different kinds of equipment that are needed for the work that you're doing. So finally, the $350,000, these are really shovel-ready projects, whether or not they're physical projects. These are 2-year projects for which you've already built community or coalition, you have the data, and now you're really ready to implement the project. So this could be anything from construction, cleanup projects, implementation of a workforce or a training initiative, of an education pipeline program in environmental justice, a public health initiative in environmental justice. So again, really not exhaustive, but these are the different tiers, and those tiers are in some way, right, I don't want you to be concerned if you have a data analysis project that's going to need more than $150,000. There may be ways for us to have those conversations. This is just intended to give a sense of, and it really comes from the EPA's process, to give a sense of how we're imagining project development. It's also a way to think about it if you have a longer term 5-year project and you're looking for funding for a particular phase of that project, you could think about how this might fit in. And a lot of the support and technical assistance and leadership we're getting from WEAC and also from the Inter-American University can partner with you on that to say, this is where we want to be in 5 years. What would be the best funding opportunity for us for this year, for 3 years down the road, and then to continue the work. So eligible entities, our wonderful Deputy Regional Administrator gave a lot of great information about the mapping tools available for disadvantaged communities. I'm not going to repeat that, but that is also true. This is also a Justice 40 program, and so it is intended to fund frontline projects led by frontline community organizations. So eligible entities, nonprofit organizations and CBOs, civic and philanthropic organizations, C3s and C4s, the 8 federally recognized Indian nations in Region 2, tribal governments, Native American organizations, local governments and municipalities are eligible as well, and institutions of higher education. And applications can be done in collaboration or in partnership. So a lot of those kinds of pairings that the Community Exchange Grant offers, those are also, they're not required, but those are also available if you're interested in an air quality monitoring project and you want to bring along a community college as a statutory partner, right, to get some citizen science going. That would work really well for one of these projects. So we talked a little bit about this, but just to take one more look at some of the kinds of potential projects: workforce, job training, student success programs. So looking at maybe where students in STEM can lean into environmental justice and sustainability, public and environmental health. We know here in Region 2 a special emphasis on air quality, capacity building, especially for grassroots orgs, projects that promote affordable and sustainable housing, food security, justice, financial security. So it's really an intersectional project. I know this conversation builds on several that we've had over the last 12 months or so here at Fordham. I know a lot of folks were here for the Urban Agriculture Roundtable back in February, and then I remember it very clearly because it was the Orange Sky Day when we were back in this room talking about decarbonizing healthcare here in the Bronx. So a lot of the kinds of projects that we talked about or initiatives that we talked about in those settings, this is where you can locate funding for some of them. Community access and revitalization of green spaces. I know we have some amazing organizations here that do that work every day and that are already receiving IRA funding for it. This is another source. Biodiversity and conservation, sustainable transportation, infrastructure design, transitions to clean and renewable energy sources. And then, as we mentioned, agriculture, food systems, and sustainable ways of eating. So this is the happy happiest I've ever been talking about this. We have, as you know, been conducting ongoing outreach, and you all have been a big part of that, so grateful to you for that. We will be opening applications in the next few weeks, so September. We're so excited, so grateful to the ongoing partnership with EPA because, you know, this program is such an essential piece of that Justice 40 legislation and really of reaching frontline communities. So we want to get it right. Our partners at EPA want us to get it right, and so we are so excited. It will be fully available in English, Spanish, and French on the online application, and then it will be also available in the 15 most commonly spoken languages in Region 2 by request, and so we have all of those ready for you. It's available online as well as on paper or via email, so we want to make sure that this is accessible in every way possible. We are really grateful to our statutory partners for their leadership there, so we're not doing this alone, we're doing it together with you and also with 5 nonprofits throughout the region that are supporting us with outreach and then with ongoing project management for the funded programs. So then in winter, that's when Wanda's work begins. We'll begin the first evaluation section after the first 3 or 4 months of receiving applications. Applications are going to be open on a rolling basis, but we will be evaluating them quarterly, and so we highly recommend if you're looking at a 2-year project to get that application in during that first year so that we have enough time to get you your funding and so that you can get that work done during the project period. So as I mentioned, the application has, you know, a number of different fields, some about the organization and its structure, but really the main components, if folks are thinking about getting ready for this right now, is a description of the project and why it's needed, a sense of how this project responds to a frontline community environmental justice priority and the intended impact there. And then the budget, how you're thinking about utilizing the resources to advance these goals. And then if you are doing one of those 250 or 350 awards, how you'll evaluate for the success that you're laying out. So those are really the key components that you could, if you have that ready to go at the end of this month, you'll be more than halfway finished with the application. And that's really the kind of the meaty pieces of it. You know where to find us. You are here on campus, but if you'd like to reach out, we do have our website with all of our up-to-date information, and we are updating that on a daily basis. Maria in the back there is on that application and on that website pretty much every day. So please do stay in touch with us. We do have a sign-up form just so that we can make sure you're on our lists. And then we do have office hours every week in English and Spanish, and then in both languages on Thursdays. We can also schedule one-on-one meetings, or if there's a group that you'd like to convene of community organizations, of stakeholders, we are always available, as are our partners, because we are really trying to raise awareness of this program as much as possible. So. Thank you very much once again to the Congressmember and to his team. Thank you to my other panelists. And then I did want to just mention we have a giveaway for you. We were lucky enough to have Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson on campus back in April for our Climate Justice Summit here. So not that we all need more reading, but her new book just came out, and we were fortunate enough to receive a number of copies of it that we'd like to share with you. I'm excited to read it, and it may give some inspiration for some of the kinds of work that we want to get done over these next 3 years of this project. So thank you.